let's talk about these Mavs because it was a weird weekend for this NBA team that resides in Dallas as they fall to the Oklahoma City Thunder 126-120. Despite a historic 30-0 run.
Well, you talk
in
about
the fourth
that.
Quarter.
Let's not forget, right? The weekend did not just start on Saturday. You also had Friday. This was a back-to-back situation.
Yes,
so
it was.
Friday, you hosted the Memphis Grizzlies, and of course, you did that without Luka Doncic as he was welcoming his daughter to the world. You did that without Dante Exum as he was welcoming his child to the world, and then Tim Hardaway Jr. has been out. And so in that game, you found a way, and it feels bad to say it that way, but in some effects, like, you know, you come in as the favored team, even though you do not have, you know, portions of your team, and you lose against the Memphis Grizzlies, a lowly team who also has a lot missing due to injury and such. And then, like you mentioned, you had a Thunder team that came in that was really good Thunder team, but you were able to go on a 30-0 run. You have this like big emotional run after, you know, having a rough start of it, not having Kyrie Irving in this game after he kind of tweaks his foot in the game on Friday. Come back, and then ultimately you cannot close out this game. And so with that being the case, was there anything over the course of that weekend, those two games, the various personnel issues, or, you know, I guess issue isn't the right word, but the various personnel things that went on, is there anything within that you felt was notable, anything that you took away from this? Goodness gracious, the Lightning are just scoring all the goals. 4-0 in Tampa. The Lightning over the Stars. But was there anything of this weekend that you took away, or is this just all, you know, you didn't have your full roster in the way that you wanted to? It's not worth talking about. This is all just kind of noise. Keep moving.
For me, I think it's, for the most part, just noise because you were, as you mentioned, so depleted in terms of personnel. But I think there were, like, I hate being the moral victories guy, but I feel like you did actually see some good basketball from your team, especially in the latter of those two games against the Thunder. You got some valuable contributions from some guys that I didn't expect to have to be in that position this early in the season. I mean, if you told me that Derrick Jones Jr. was going to be playing 33 minutes in this game, I would tell you, oh no, something has gone horribly wrong, and I don't know how I'm going to get there. He was knocking down all the three-pointers. 24 points in 33 minutes on an off night for Grant Williams. You needed a guy to step up. You got that. AJ Lawson out here draining open look threes was really nice to see. And then Derek Lively had himself a game.
Yes.
He had a few
game
blocks.
and a half, in fact.
Yeah. Had some blocks to go along with a 20-point double-double, 16 boards.
Wait, did you say some blocks when he had 7 whole blocks?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
very good.
Yeah, I was intentionally understating.
Okay.
He had himself a game. And it's incredible to see what he continues to do at 19 years old. And it definitely felt like that game that you needed to see something from a guy like a Derek Lively because you are so depleted. And you needed that action underneath the rim because you're not going to get any contributions from a guy like a Kyrie Irving who wasn't playing, who wasn't going to attack the rim in a way that we would like to see. And we talked about it at some point last week on this show about, you know, the Mavs getting close to the rim versus getting to the rim.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see that you're getting a guy, even in just a one-game sample size, that is getting to the rim and actually scoring some points in that attack. It was nice to see that Jaden Hardy didn't give you too much, so you were getting some contributions from a guy like even Seth Curry knocking down some tougher shots beyond the arc. So, like, I like what I saw despite the final score. It was just cool to see that, hey, some of your better players and your key contributors weren't playing in this game, and you still got some valuable contributions from guys that you typically wouldn't expect that from.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some positive takeaways to take away from this game, even though I think you have to narrow it down, right? There are early portions of this game where it does not look like anybody else is particularly helping, and we are back in this place, in this space, where because Kyrie Irving isn't there, Luka Doncic is having to carry it. And let me press pause on that positivity that I was going to spread. This is some of the potential takeaways that you have to think about. This is not the first time this season alone that we're talking about Kyrie Irving and his foot or his feet and, maybe missing time. Like, this is a dude who, when you were acquiring him, The concern was him showing up to work, and it wasn't simply that one thing that everybody talks about. That obscured it because that was such a big, narrative thing.
Yeah.
Obscured that he has some injuries. And I mean, look, he's a dude who's played a good amount of basketball in his career. And, over that time, you will accumulate some injuries. He has, I don't want to call him injury prone, but he will miss some time with injuries. And so the question needing to be, this team was built under the understanding that you have two pillars, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. And is this going to be something that nags and lags on? Is it going to be something that perpetuates itself? Is going to be a question. But then also within that run, the 30-0 run, I think we saw something in there. You talked about, putting in the guys, Derrick Jones Jr., who is, he feels like he's going to be your consistent starter on the wing. It's good seeing him knock down threes because that's what's going to be necessary for him to be on the court. What I did like is seeing Derrick Jones Jr., seeing Omax Prosper get a little time, seeing AJ Lawson, dudes who have a little bit of size, have some length, help you defensively, get you back into that game. Because that was the thing. This is the thing with the Mavericks that we all look at and we go, that's the big question mark. That's the thing with this roster. And one of the things you saw was them getting into passing lanes, them being able to execute a defensive vision when they were going and trapping Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at the point, once he gets across the timeline and making other players on the team do things. And then when they pass, get in those passing lanes, get out on the break, go get easy transition buckets. Those are the things that you saw in a small sample, obviously, but it gave me some level of hope that, okay, there's proof of concept. Can you guys maybe still give that kind of effort and get into the passing lanes and do that as a team collectively in a way? Because those are things that are going to be necessary to make this defense better. And that's what's going to be necessary for you to do any level of competing this season. So that's one of the things. On the truckwreck.com text line from the 214, they also mentioned AJ Lawson. And on the other 214, they say it's mostly noise. They're going with you. But the concerns, defense, and injuries, especially Kyrie. Yeah. So I'm with you there. And I guess I was talking about maybe some of the positives in that little run, but some of the negatives were Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was cutting you up on defense on Saturday. And on Sunday, the thing that got me is Desmond Bane, who is a great shooter, TCU alum, obviously, shout out, right? Great shooter. He can do a little bit off the bounce, but this is not a guy that you look at as a slasher of any sorts. And he was driving down your throat consistently. And so, yeah, those defensive concerns remain, and obviously, so that run is a good thing, but it can't be runs. It needs to be more consistent.
It does. And I'm sorry, quick aside.
Please do.
I'm just looking at the box score of the Grizzlies game against the Mavs. Remember when that dude David Roddy absolutely pulverized them last season?
Was that one or two times? Because I'm trying to remember. I know that there were some folks that were like, I really do hate David Roddy. Yeah. It takes me back to fall. It was amazing. Which honestly speaks, it really does speak to how much the Memphis Grizzlies are in a bad spot, because David Roddy was a very nice piece to kind of throw in the rotation. But this year they've had to depend on him in a way. They've been looking for him or Conchar or Santi Aldama to really play for them. And that speaks to the injury issues that they have had.
Yeah, they've had all kinds of issues over there in Memphis so far this season. But I do like the point that you brought up about the defensive efforts, especially in that Thunder game, because that 30-0 run doesn't happen without some key stops. And it wasn't just the Thunder weren't knocking down their shots. It was great rim protection from Derek Lively. It was Luka poking a ball out.
Well, some of it was them knocking down their shots, but at least they weren't attacking you down the middle of your defense.
Exactly. And that's what I was happy to see was, it wasn't one of those just a totally off shooting night. You got some actual contributions there on the defensive end in that run. So, and it's guys that are coming off the end of the bench too. It's not your front five that you're expecting to at least give that level of effort late in the game. And it's incredible that all went down in the fourth quarter too. At least that this team can stay competitive when it matters. And really impressive that Luka, missed a game because he was welcoming his child into the world. And I bet he did not get much sleep, willing to put money on that.
Sure.
And he came back and played all but 2 minutes in that game.
46 minutes.
That was impressive.
If you do want to speak on Luka and the maturity, right, obviously having the child, but that's the narrative part of it. One of the things that's tough though is he spurs and he really does drive this run. And as you heard when we played it on the audio coming into this segment, he was the one who capped off the 30-0 with a steal and then getting up the floor and finishing in transition, right? He was the one who capped that run. but he also allowed a missed call in his estimation to kind of throw him back off his game in a certain instance. And so he's been better about that this season, it feels like. But he does need to continue to make sure that he's not allowing, I guess, tiffs or, with the officials or what have you to throw him off his game at all, especially in instances like this where hopefully you don't have to have very many instances where he is the entire lifeblood of the team because there's not another engine that can kind of make things go. But this was one of those instances, and if you get off because you are the main, distributor, you can kind of mess a lot of this up. And so that was a little disheartening. But again, I think ultimately there's a decent amount of noise, but I think that there were some things that I thought could be some level of takeaway from this weekend, especially because you have a couple of losses, which was unfortunate. And so now your Mavericks are in this place in the West where they currently sit at 6th. Right, so this is different than the second place that they sat after a portion of their schedule. They're now in this place where they're right about where I think some of us anticipated they would be at the start of the season. Of course, that doesn't mean that this is where they'll stay, but I think it's interesting to see that portion of it. The Mavs next take on the the Jazz, the Utah Jazz, and that's on Wednesday at the AAC.
7:30 tip then, and then the Trailblazers on Friday on the road. So we'll see if the Mavericks can bounce back and hopefully get a little bit healthier.